What if your darkest mistake didn't just cost someone their life, but came back decades later in the most haunting way imaginable? On June 26, 2024, convicted killer Ramiro Gonzales was executed in Texas. The chilling detail? That day wasn't just his execution date. It was also the exact date his victim, Bridget Townsend, would have turned 42. The same day she came into the world, he left it. Tonight, we're going deep into the story of Gonzales, a young man with a broken past, a brutal crime, years of appeals, a bizarre attempt to donate his kidney, and finally, the cold reality of death row. We'll uncover what happened on that night in 2001, his troubled upbringing, the legal battles that stretched across decades, and ultimately, the final words he chose to leave behind. Welcome to Death Row Diaries, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another case. It was January 15th, 2001, a quiet Monday in rural Bandera County, Texas, the kind of place where people left their doors unlocked, where life moved a little slower. That night, 18-year-old Bridget Townsend was at her boyfriend's home. Her boyfriend, Joe Leal, wasn't just any young man. He was a known drug dealer in the area. Bridget, caught up in that lifestyle, was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Unbeknownst to her, another young man was watching. Ramiro Gonzales, also 18, had set his sights on Leal's stash. He wasn't there to meet Bridget. He was there to steal cocaine. When Gonzales forced his way into the house, he expected drugs, maybe cash. Instead, he found Bridget. She wasn't supposed to be there. Startled, she tried to call her boyfriend, but Gonzales wasn't about to let her make that call. He overpowered her, tied her up, and ransacked the place. He stole some cash, but no drugs. For Bridget, the nightmare had just begun. Hours later, when friends and family couldn't reach her, panic set in. Bridget had vanished. At just 18 years old, her life had been snatched away in a moment of pure violence. But no one knew that yet. To the world, Bridget was simply missing. And her disappearance would remain a mystery for over a year. After leaving Joe Leal's house, Gonzales forced Bridget into his truck. Imagine her terror, bound, helpless, driven into the night by a man she barely knew. He drove her back to his family's ranch in Medina County, Texas. Out there, isolated, far from help, Bridget begged for mercy. She pleaded for her life. But Gonzales wasn't listening. Instead, he committed the unthinkable, assaulting her, before grabbing a hunting rifle. With a single shot, he ended her life. He carried her body to a remote field in southwest Texas, dumping her in the dirt like she was nothing more than evidence to be hidden. For Bridget's family, the nightmare was only beginning. They had no idea what had happened, and no body to lay to rest. And as weeks turned to months, Gonzales moved on with his life. But his violent streak was far from over. Just 8 months later, in September 2001, Gonzales struck again. This time, the victim was Florence Teich. He kidnapped and assaulted her in a crime so brutal that it landed him behind bars. For that attack, he received 2 consecutive life sentences. But prison didn't silence his conscience, or maybe it just became too heavy to carry. A year later, while serving his time, Gonzales asked to speak with the sheriff of Bandera County, James McMillian. At first, the sheriff thought it was just another inmate's story, a way to stir up attention. But Gonzales had details, disturbing, chilling details. He told McMillian that he had killed Bridget Townsend. Skeptical, the sheriff pressed him for more, and Gonzales delivered, leading authorities to the field where he had abandoned her. In October 2002, search teams finally found Bridget's skeletal remains. The family's worst fears had been confirmed. For over a year, they had clung to the hope that maybe Bridget was alive somewhere, that maybe she had just run away. Now, that hope was gone, and Ramiro Gonzales wasn't just a violent offender anymore. He was a murderer. As prosecutors built their case, they painted Gonzales as a cold-blooded killer. But the defense wanted the world to see him differently, as a product of a broken childhood. Born in Texas on November 5, 1932, Gonzales came into the world with the odds stacked against him. His mother was just 17 and deeply addicted to drugs and alcohol. Even while pregnant, she continued her habits, at one point trying to overdose in an attempt to end the pregnancy. Gonzales survived, but not without scars. Raised mostly by his grandparents, he barely knew his father until they reunited in prison. Court records later revealed horrifying details of abuse. At just 4 or 6 years old, Gonzales was molested by a cousin. By 12 or 13, he was assaulted again, this time by an older woman. School wasn't much better. He struggled academically, labeled developmentally delayed, even though medical tests showed he had a normal brain. By 11, he was drinking and experimenting with drugs. The defense would later argue that this cycle of abuse and addiction shaped the man he became, that his crime was the tragic result of a life destroyed before it even had a chance to begin. But the jury would see things very differently. In August 2006, Gonzales stood trial in Medina County for the capital murder of Bridget Townsend. The defense begged for life imprisonment. They painted a picture of a damaged young man, scarred by his upbringing, impaired by the substances his mother abused while carrying him. But the prosecution wasn't swayed. Their experts testified that Gonzales wasn't mentally ill nor brain damaged. He knew exactly what he was doing. Worse, a psychiatrist claimed Gonzales was a future danger to society, a man likely to commit more violent crimes if ever given the chance. For the jury, that sealed the deal. The verdict was unanimous, guilty of capital murder. And the sentence? Death. At just 23 years old, Ramiro Gonzales was condemned to die. But in Texas, death row is rarely swift. What followed was nearly 2 decades of appeals, delays, and desperate attempts to escape his fate. For Gonzales, death row became a waiting game. He appealed again and again, 2009, 2012, 2015. Each time, his efforts struck down. The U.S. Supreme Court rejected his case in December 2015. By 2016, an execution date was set, but legal complications pushed it back. And then, something unusual happened. In 2022, Gonzales announced he wanted to donate a kidney to save a stranger's life. It was a bizarre twist. Was it genuine remorse, a bid to delay his execution, or a little of both? For a moment, it worked. His execution was put on hold. Even more shocking, the psychiatrist who had once testified against him, Dr. Edward Grippon, publicly recanted his statement. Grippon admitted his testimony about Gonzales being a future danger was based on outdated, discredited research from 1986. He now believed Gonzales was no longer a threat. The defense seized on this reversal, arguing it was grounds for clemency. But the clock was still ticking. 2 years later, in 2024, the state of Texas issued a new death warrant. The date, June 26, 2024. That wasn't just any day. It was Bridget Townsend's birthday. For Gonzales's lawyers, it was another cruel twist of fate. For Bridget's family, it was poetic justice. In his final months, he tried to make amends. He recorded a video plea, tearfully apologizing and asking for forgiveness. He wrote letters to Bridget's family, admitting his guilt and expressing remorse. His attorneys argued that he was no longer the same person, that decades on death row had transformed him into a deeply spiritual man, filled with regret. But when the case went before the Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles, the answer was unanimous: no clemency. The Supreme Court, too, rejected his final appeal just hours before the scheduled execution. For Gonzales, there was nothing left but time. On June 26, 2024, at the Huntsville unit, Ramiro Gonzales was led to the death chamber. He was 41 years old. Strapped to the gurney, he used his final moments to apologize. He told Bridget's family he was sorry for killing her. He said he hoped they could find healing and closure. At 6:50 p.m., a single dose of pentobarbital stopped his heart. Witnesses reported that he remained calm until the very end. But for Bridget's family, those words weren't enough. Her mother, Patricia Townsend, refused his apology outright. She said many people endure hard childhoods, yet they don't choose murder. For her, Gonzales deserved no mercy. Her brother, David, went further, calling the execution justice served, an end to their long and painful journey. To them, Gonzales's death wasn't tragic. It was overdue. And the fact that it happened on Bridget's birthday, that, they said, was fitting. The same day she came into the world, her killer left it. So what do we make of Ramiro Gonzales? Was he the broken child of a tragic past who found redemption too late? Or was he always destined to become the violent man who stole an innocent girl's future? His story forces us to confront a chilling question. Can someone truly change after committing the unthinkable, or are some crimes simply beyond forgiveness? What's certain is this: on June 26, 2024, the state of Texas closed the book on Ramiro Gonzales, and Bridget Townsend, after more than 22 years, finally had justice. This is Death Row Diaries. If you found this case as haunting as we did, make sure to subscribe for more stories of crime, punishment, and the thin line between justice and mercy.